Sounds good.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. Jean Ginsberg, digital marketing expert, and today we have a special guest, Kate Buck. Kate Buck is from Social Media Pro, and she's going to talk all about how to flip your funnel and talk to your most engaged audiences first so that you can get the most engagement on your social media. So how's it going today, Kate? Good to have you here.
Hey, it's going really well. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Is this your is this your first roundtable, or am I in at the beginning?
This is not the first one. We started doing this probably in the beginning of the year, so it's probably been about, I don't know, 6 or so roundtables so far.
Awesome.
So I think you're definitely our first guest that we've had on at the roundtable.
Cool.
So this is very exciting. So welcome to being our first guest. And then, did you want to share your screen with your presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have some stuff that I want to share, so I just want to chat for just a second.
Sure, absolutely.
And just say hi to everybody, and thank you again for having me on. You know, this is something that you and I have been chatting about for almost a year now, in essence, and that is how to get more engagement, more video views on the actual posts that you create. Like, we're taking time to create content, whether that's a blog post or YouTube videos, and then put it out on social media, which also takes time to create that content. And then we put it out there, like we said, and it gets kind of this dead space, this dead air. And so for a while now, I've been thinking about, well, how do we flip that around? How do we change that? And a lot of times when we're thinking about social media, we're thinking about the top of the funnel, right? And this is where let's see, I will share my screen. When you see me looking over here, I'm on my other screen. I'm just sorting out, like, what's the best way to go into presenter mode and use Zoom to share this PowerPoint with you. So we're going to kind of do this amended presentation that I teach in Social Media Pro. This is desktop 1. Okay, good. And then
Awesome.
I go into presenter mode.
I see everything on your screen, so excellent. That's good news. We are using the technology correctly.
Good. Oops, I did play from start instead of play from the current slide. So let's do that. So when we think about social media, especially for the social media manager and digital marketing, we're usually thinking about that top part of the funnel up there where you see awareness, right? And so, wait. I need to swap the displays, don't I? There we go. Now we're using the technology properly. So we think about social media, we always think about awareness. And social media really does fulfill reaching new audiences. But part of reaching new audiences is first reaching the ones that are closest to you, which are your audiences that are further down the funnel. Sometimes those are even by starting with your actual customer base. And sometimes that means starting with customers that have engaged with you in one of these other stages of your funnel first, before working backwards and reaching out to the awareness phase, right? So from a cost perspective, it makes more sense to reach our people that are the warmest first, which would even be like our customers, our raving fans, right? And get our content into their hands and use that fuel or that momentum to get our content shared out to the people that are furthest away from us, which would be new customers, new prospects that are at the top of the funnel, where we're just bringing awareness to them. So that being the case, if that's the case, then how does this all work? And so when I teach social media marketing, I really teach that there are 3 types of content that you're going to create for each stage of the funnel. So there's growth content, engagement content, and invitation content. And you can see the color matching there, where growing is all about awareness, engagement is all about evaluation, and invitation is all about conversion, right? So when we're doing this, we're creating all of these different types of content. In the growth phase, we might have a quiz, we might have a meme, we might have we might just see something that's a very easy, almost like a lighthearted piece of content that doesn't take a lot of commitment to engage with for a customer. So I'm going to come out here to this little digital marketer funnel because I love using it as an example. I love marketing because blank, right? So that's a great piece of growth content because it is a piece of content that works at the top of that funnel. So when we see I love marketing because, we can put that out there to a wide audience, and it lives at the top of the funnel in the awareness phase because someone doesn't have to necessarily be a fan of the brand in order to engage with that piece of content. So my clients always ask me, why do we love quotes? Why do we love memes? Why do we love these fluff, what seem like to most marketers like a piece of fluff content? And the reason is because it doesn't take a lot of commitment from someone to engage with it. They don't have to be super committed or be a super fan of the brand in order to engage with that piece of content. But once someone has engaged with that piece of content, we want to move them through those other pieces of the funnel. After awareness, we move to evaluation. And evaluation is where we deliver the content, like the meat of our content via blog post, and of course via video. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you see two examples of that. One where they've created a blog post called the Ultimate List of Blog Post Ideas. You can see it's been updated in this particular screenshot to the second edition. So this is something that's been working for them, and it's a campaign that they reuse. So all of these assets get reused. And they've also created a companion video for that features 5 of the blog post ideas, because we know in social media, we maybe only have time for 5. We don't have time for the ultimate list. So this is evaluation content. And of course, you guys get that all of it is leading to their lead magnet, which is an ebook that you can opt in for called the Ultimate List of Blog Post Ideas. So this seems fairly understandable. You've got awareness content, you've got evaluation content, and it's all leading to your invitation content or your conversion content. And when you look at that mapped right next to a funnel, it makes perfect sense. But when you post it out there, oftentimes when we're thinking about boosting it, so I'll start with saying a lot of times, and Jean, I'm sure you've seen this as well with the people that you talk to and work with, your clients and customers, that we think that we still are of that mindset of that if you build it, if you create the content and you put it out there, people are going to read it. And it's just not the case anymore, especially on Facebook. We have to pay to play to a certain degree, right? So it makes sense that we set aside a budget for every piece of content to boost that content out so that it starts to actually be seen in the newsfeed and reach our audiences. So that's where we talk about boosting it to our audiences. And then we're also going to later in the funnel retarget people who have engaged with that piece of content to see the next piece in the funnel. So when someone has engaged with I love marketing because, it makes sense that I could do a retargeting campaign to show them the top 5 blog post ideas. And if they've engaged with the top 5 blog post ideas and they've watched this video, it kind of makes sense that then you would want to retarget them and make sure that they go read the full blog post. Or you could also retarget them and send them straight to the ultimate list of blog post ideas and go straight for the opt-in. It's because you've primed them at each of these stages and warmed them up so they're not just seeing you for the first time when you're asking them for their contact information, right, or for the conversion. So there are lots of ways to boost your best performing content or to boost your content in general. And the first one starts with retargeting, and it starts with people who have already engaged with you with your pages and profiles and with your content. So, you know, when you go into the audience manager and you're creating audiences, the first audiences that you want to create are the ones that are people that have directly engaged with you. I thought there was a little slide in here. Shoot. That listed those audiences out, and it's not. So that's good. This is going really well. I'm being a little hard on myself. So the first ones are your retargeting audiences. Let me X out of here and pull up a different PowerPoint that has that one in there.
Are you talking about audiences on Facebook, like retargeting audiences?
Yeah, right in the ads manager, right? Go into your ads manager and create
go to audiences. Yep,
create
absolutely.
These audiences. Here we go. There it is. And these are all the choices that you will have. So you can retarget based on people who've watched videos, people who have engaged your page, your Instagram profile, if you've ever run an event before. And then you can also create a custom audience based on that pixel that's on your website for people that have been active on your website. You also could create an audience by uploading both your prospect list via your email list and or a subset of that, which is your actual buyers list of people who have actually bought from you. These are the first audiences that you want to retarget. So if you remember, we're flipping the funnel. Cold would be at the top and our retargeting audiences would be at the bottom. So we're actually going to start by boosting and work from the bottom up, if that makes sense. So these retargeting audiences are going to be the first audiences that you're going to want to boost your content to, because they're the ones that are the most familiar already with either your face or your brand or just your content and products and services in general. Your cost for reaching these folks is going to be cheaper. And remember, we're playing a game of how to hack your way into the Facebook algorithm. And so you need to demonstrate to Facebook that your content is relevant. So the people that your content is most relevant to are the people that are going to be in your retargeting audiences. Then from there, once you've boosted to that audience, you could start to expand out from there to some of these other audiences. The next one would be, for instance, your lookalike audiences. So lookalike audiences could be made from any of those ones that we just mentioned, any of your engagement audiences or your customer email list audiences or your website visitors. Now I can create lookalike audiences, and that would be your next step in boosting content to people who look like your very best customers, your very best prospects, your very warmest audience, which are your retargeting audiences. The next stage, a warm target, is going to be where I might target people who have similar interests or who may have seen my content because I spoke. Perfect example is I could target my content to people who have been to traffic and conversion, right? Or who, if that shows up as an interest, or people who follow or engage with people that are my clients because they've seen me before. So for instance, if Jean's audience was big enough to show up as an interest, then for me, because I've engaged with her and it's possible that my audience or that her audience has seen me, like almost via a drive-by, right? Maybe I spoke at an event somewhere, or maybe I have a client, or maybe I did a podcast or something like that, and I can show some level of association with a brand or a product, then that would be my warm target audience. And finally, the last stage and the last audience that you want to target is the cold audience. Now, if you're starting from zero and you have no list and you have no social profiles set up, and this is your first venture out, then unfortunately, or fortunately, unfortunately, you will have to just kind of jump to this phase, and there's some best practices for doing it. But if you can use And the cold target is obviously where you're just putting in demographics like age, location, interests, and you have no other point of association with that contact. If you have to start here, you can then work your way down, right? You can start there and optimize that until you get to a place where you have active and engaged audience, you have people visiting your website, and you can create retargeting lists after that. But if at all possible, if you've done any work already, start with using that work that you've already done instead of starting up there at the cold target audience, which in my opinion, I hear a lot of times from my students, that's where they're thinking they should start because they know that social media is all about awareness, right? And so if it's about awareness, then we're trying to first reach people that we've never reached before. And while that sort of makes sense when you say it out, when I say it out loud, the idea is that using social proof and using engagement with your warmest contacts first will give the Facebook algorithm metrics in your favor that then when you do expand out, right, you will be more efficient with your ad spend, and it will be more effective to reaching those cold audiences. You'll also already have some social proof on your posts, right? Because people will see the likes, comments, shares, video views, all of those engagement metrics that came from those retargeting audiences, which we found first at the bottom of our funnel. So, the point of what I'm really trying to share and drive home, and I hope really kind of came through in just the short amount of time, is that even though the ultimate objective in social media for most people is to bring in new customers and new prospects through at the top of the funnel, when we share our content, we actually share it and boost it first with the people who have already moved through to the bottom, because that's going to maximize the results we get when we open up to those cold prospects at the top of the funnel.
Okay. Wow. That's very interesting and very insightful, because I definitely learned a lot, and I've already heard this presentation before, but every time I hear it, there's always something new that I feel like I have not heard. So yeah, thank you very much. I did have a question. So you mentioned social proof. So what's the best way to use social proof when you're doing this content on social media?
Yeah, the best way to use social proof is first of all to use this method. The first step is to use this method because the people that are closest to you are the ones that are most likely to engage with the content, so you just have it there. When I used to launch BuzzFeed style videos for a client of mine, we always did our best to get the most views on our videos within the first hour or so of launching. So we'd immediately launch, and then we had really tight, warm audiences that we knew loved our content. And those were the people who'd watched our videos in the past, people who'd subscribed to our email list. Because if I can get views on that video within the first hour, then it actually starts to create its own organic momentum on top of the paid momentum, right? So I'm using paid to actually increase my organic results. So I knew what audiences to boost to in the beginning. Now, another technique to think about with that is that we're in this mindset because everybody says that you need to be consistently creating high quality content and putting it out there. So we create content, we put it out there, and then we abandon it and we move on because next week we need to create a new piece of content and put it out there. But so we're constantly posting and creating new content. And while depending on what you're working on strategically, sometimes that's a good idea. What I recommend people think about is when I use the word best performing content, in my mind, I have good content that reaches my audiences, and I'm going to use it again and again. So just because I boost it one time to this audience and I put it out on, a Monday, Doesn't mean I'm not going to share that same video. That's one of the beauties of video views is that, or videos, is that you can repost from the same source video and you retain your video view metric. So when I go to share it again, I haven't lost my video views. So now my new audience that's just seeing this video for the first time is still seeing that I have thousands, tens of thousands, however many views you've been able to rack up with this combined paid diving board plus organic momentum approach. And as you saw in the video digital marketer example, that was the second edition. They actually launch that campaign at least once a year. I think it's like a second quarter campaign. I usually see it in the springtime. And because of that, they have really over time, they rank for blog post ideas. All of those videos have a lot of social proof on them because they're reusing and repurposing the same assets over and over again. So when you have assets, core assets to a campaign like that, my business partner, Jesse, has a video that he runs for a client of ours, and he ran it for 2.5, almost 3 years. And we just kept changing the audience targeting for it. But now the video has 12, 13 million views on it. The actual post in and of itself has hundreds of thousands of shares and thousands of comments and likes. And so that kind of social proof is built up over time by dialing in one key asset that you use over and over and over again. And it starts by launching it out to your audience in those retargeting audiences, and then slowly opening it up to those cold audiences at the top. But it doesn't necessarily even end there. Now you can start finding different windows that piece of content or different audiences that piece of content will appeal to, and over time you can do the different audiences. Like for example, we have a meal planning service as a client, and so we have different audience segments. Sometimes we do audience segments of people who are fans of like the big boxes like Freshly and HelloFresh and whatever, or maybe they do grocery delivery like Instacart and whatever, that type of thing. We also have people that are fans of like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, because maybe they're on some kind of like diet meal plan. Other people like to watch television shows, like maybe they're big fans of the Food Network or particular chefs like Rachel Ray or, whatever. So it's still one product that we're selling, which is a subscription to like a menu planning service that will give you dinner ideas every night. But we can keep showing that video until we exhaust the impressions to all of these different groups. And that will to reach people on Facebook, to reach all of the people who fall into an interest category that I just mentioned. I mean, those are millions and millions and millions of people that we have exposure to. And we can just create a couple of social assets and keep reusing them as long as they speak to that audience. And you can get millions and millions of views and a lot of traffic. And instead of just churn and burn, create content, just keep adjusting the targeting of that one piece of content and building up the social proof on it by keeping it, keeping just one piece.
That's very true. So one thing to keep in mind, just kind of as a comment here, is to be a little bit creative. As you mentioned, you had some very creative ideas. You were talking about Jenny Craig, and you were also talking about Rachel Ray, and you were talking about Freshly. It's like really being creative about who your audiences might be, and that really always goes back to understanding who your ideal target market is. And I can't stress this enough. I mean, I think if anybody knows me, that like I probably beat this dead horse like 1,000 times about knowing your ideal target market, because I really do believe that it is half of the battle. Like if you know who you're talking to and what your message is towards that audience, then you've won half of the battle. Like the marketing is like the other half of the battle. So if you know who your ideal target market is, then it's so much easier to be creative and be like, okay, well, who can I target besides just, you know, the obvious choices. So I thank you so much, yeah, for sharing that and all these like little creative ideas on who I can target, you know, if I'm running a campaign. And the other part that I was going to comment on is, yeah, absolutely, being consistent with your social media content is extremely important, but it's not necessarily that you have to do it new every single time, right? It's not like you're like, oh, I need to create a new video, because you've had probably some good content that you've had some good engagement with, and it's not necessarily that you have to create new content all the time. You just have to, you know, consistently put that content out there, but it doesn't have to be new. It could just be like repurposed content because you've already had some good engagement on it. So continuously doing that. So I totally agree. And I think a lot of times the business owners and entrepreneurs miss that part. They're like, oh, you know, it's another thing I have to do. I have to create more content, but that's not really the case.
Yeah, if you can just put together, if you think from the end forward of what that, like from the digital marketer example of what you want them to opt in for, and then you can create a blog post that gives some, and or a video that gives some information, and naturally it says, hey, if you want more, you gotta opt in. And then can I create a piece of sticky content or meme content or viral content, whatever word you want to use, which is just something to throw out there to get people engaging with you. And if they do engage with that post, you know that it's likely that they're interested in this topic. Another example I have is a, you know, just in the world of memes, like I have a woman who sells information and supplements in the holistic space for women, right? So she sells like organic supplements and information about how to deal with like hormones and, you know, that sort of thing organically. And we use a meme that says, keep calm, it's just a hot flash. Right? And we've used that post over and over and over again because we know that if someone likes that post or they share that post or they comment on that post, that at least that we've narrowed the scope from like all women that are in the cold target audience. And a great example is, you know, you would be like all women, you know, 42 and up or 45 or however you wanted to, you know, position that. And now we've narrowed it down to women who, you know, are thinking this is funny or, you know, whatever. And now I can retarget people who have engaged with that piece of content with maybe a blog post about how to manage hot flashes the all natural way with supplementation, or the 5 foods you must eat, you know, to manage your hot flashes organically. And so not to go too far off the reservation, but if you start, everyone always thinks, oh, memes and quotes are stupid and they're useless and I'm tired of seeing them and they're a waste of time. But if you think about it really strategically, they are a way to, if I think of them as like bait, or like it's your lure that you're putting out for fishing, and whoever engages with that is now a good candidate to read your blog post content, you know, more so than just anybody who's in your demographic. You've given them something to hook onto. And so now we're going to like hold their hand and baby step them through the funnel to read our blog posts. And the same thinking, once they've read a blog post, maybe 2 blog posts, maybe they've watched a video or 2, something like that. Now it makes sense to send them to either a lead magnet or possibly even a tripwire, maybe a webinar or something to opt into, or maybe it's a $7 ebook or something that you know, you can make the ask because you've primed them with content strategically leading up to that. So
I was just going to ask you that question because I think that is such an important point. And I know that we talked a lot about content and social media, but I'm sure everybody who's watching this webinar is thinking, okay, well, you know, what do I do now? Like, yeah, content and social media are great, but like, how do I make actually revenue for my business? So it's interesting that you mentioned, and maybe we could flush it out a little bit, is, you know, how do you go from cold traffic, what you mentioned in the beginning, to actually getting a client? And, you know, of course, this is really stepping stones, but maybe you can speak a little bit about that. And also, maybe you can talk about what a lead magnet and a tripwire is, just in case people on this webinar are not sure on what that is.
Sure. So if we work backwards, we think about that ultimate objective is that we want we actually ultimately want somebody to become a customer. And there's a couple of different ways to attract someone to become a customer. One is to first get their contact information. So you do a transaction with them. The transaction is their contact information in exchange for whatever knowledge or information you have that would be a solution to their problem. So I've been researching influencer marketing platforms right now where that will help me do research on influencer marketing for my clients to find best accounts to do shout outs and, stuff like, and sponsorships and collaborations and all of that. So, lots of them are, if I want a demo, got to give my contact information, right? That's valuable to the business because I just became a lead. At Social Media Pro, getting on our messenger list to receive updates, joining our free Facebook group is one of the sources, is what we call a lead magnet, because it's something that's free in exchange for me being able to market to, solve your problem and deliver something to you, but also then I have the ability to continue to market to you. The idea of a tripwire is that you could skip that contact info exchange and just give them something that's like so low cost that it's a no-brainer. If you think about it, when you're at the grocery store and you're just right there at the cash register, there's like little things that you pick up, or there's stuff that, there are things that you buy or that you pay for, because anything under $10, sometimes even under 20 bucks, is not something that you actually really have to like do a lot of value add around. I know every time one of my friends has a Kindle book for 99 cents, like it's a no-brainer because I want to support them with their Kindle launch or whatever it is. It's 99 cents is no big deal. And a tripwire kind of works like that, where if I can just tell you that I'm going to solve your problem and it's going to be for less than 10 bucks. It's not like you're sitting there evaluating, or you got to go check your bank account to like make sure, you got the funds or whatever. It's an easy, quick transaction. And now the psychology behind, they've given you their payment information, they've given you their credit card instantaneously. Not only is there like a dopamine release in their brain, but at the same time, the trust between the two of you has just gone up exponentially. And it is dependent on the actual deliverable that they consume, but just giving you their credit card in and of itself is an act of trust. So if you start there and you think about, okay, what could I offer my customers for free that they might give me their email address? Or what could I offer them in that same vein of like an ebook or information that I'm willing to charge less than $10 for? Then we can work backwards, and just in that thing, then I can create content that primes. And as a matter of fact, if you wrote an ebook or you have video series or something like that that you're using as a lead magnet, you just pull out little nuggets from it, and that's what you share on social media. I don't do a lot of actual like thinking about what I post for my clients. I just go read the content that they've created and that they give out, that people pay for and buy. And I break that down into little bite-sized nuggets, make it into video, make it into quote posts, make it into tweets, make it into shareable content that then leads back to the content where it came from, take them back to the source of that content. And that's where, and tell them if they want to read the rest of it, if they like that golden nugget and they want more, they're going to need, this is the action that they need to take. So social media content is not actually really challenging if you work backwards. And at the same time, then work from the bottom of the funnel up. And so see, I'm always working from the end forward instead of sitting around at the top thinking about what do I post and when do I post it and who do I post it to. I don't spend any time thinking about that. I go directly to the content that they're going to buy. I create my social media content from that. As the source content, and then I target my tightest people first, and then I open it up from there.
That's a very good point. And that is a question that I get asked a lot and I'm sure you get that asked a lot too, Kate, is what do I post? Like, what is the content that I should be posting? Such a good point that you should be working backwards, taking little bite-sized pieces from your main content, whatever it might be, a course, your consulting services, whatever it might be, and creating that. The only thing I was going to say is that I always, again, keep in mind your ideal target market. So when I create content, yes, I do take bite-sized pieces, but I also think about what are the challenges and pain points and frustrations that my ideal target market has, and I create content also around that leads into, whatever it is I'm looking to sell. So something also to keep in mind, because again, I always get that question asked a lot, is like, hey, what's the content that I should create? Well, create content around frustrations and pain points and challenges of your ideal target market that lead into your service.
Hopefully your product or service or whatever you're selling, that's actually what it does, right?
Yes,
like
exactly. Yes.
What it does. So if you have created your product or service, now if you're trying to change markets, I understand, like, I know, for instance, the types of clients that I get is not always the same clients that I get from my information product business. I service clients in one industry, but then my information product services the social media manager community. So make sure that whatever it is that you're selling, that content, like when I talk to my social media managers about like what to charge and, how to fire a problem client, like I can't always share that on my personal profile because a lot of my clients are my friends, and I don't want to be sharing like, how to up your prices 3 times in the next 10 days or what, by 3x in the next 10 days. Because then my clients are like how to fire clients and then tell stories about my client or whatever it is, right? So yeah, definitely make sure that you've got your target market in mind, your product or service is solving their problem, create that, and then work backwards to create your social media content from there for that exact audience. Also, part of knowing them is a part of knowing what type of content do they like to consume. So just because you're solving the problem, do they like video? Do they like longer blog posts? Do they prefer are they on Instagram, right? And so this is all research that you should do a little bit ahead of the curve, but the answers, it's not something that you need to ask. Like, I know it sounds weird to say, you don't necessarily need to ask an expert about it. You need to ask your audience. So this is all of these answers are out there if you just do research. And I love research. So.
Yes. Cool. Well, we have a few minutes for questions. So if you guys have any questions, anybody who's on the webinar, please feel free to ask us. You can ask in the Q&A or put it in the chat box. We always love hearing from you guys and always love answering any of your questions. Let's see. So I did have a question come in. I'm just checking that on my phone. Did have a question come in from Erica, and Erica's asking, should I boost or a post or set up an ad for Facebook? What are your thoughts on that? So the question is, should I boost a post or set up that post as a ad on Facebook? Now, I always heard that boosting a post is typically like not recommended. It's usually designed for marketers or business owners who are not very familiar with Facebook. And so Facebook can kind of see that you're not as familiar, and so they're not going to give you like the benefit, if you will. So if you can create an ad and create a post, create an ad and put that post in that ad, then that makes Facebook, what I call, feel better and give you the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, on that, Kate.
Yeah, in the past that really was the case, but now that the audience manager is tied in, as long as you've created your audiences ahead of time and you can select your audience from inside from the boost post, right? You used to just have a lot more functionality as to who you could target if you went to the ads manager. I actually still do like that way better, but if you're just looking for quick and dirty, it's okay to just boost. Just make sure that you've gone in and then labeled all of those audiences really detailed so that you can target the audience that you want to target straight from boosting. But again, you need to have those audiences set up from the beginning.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point. That's at least what I heard before, but maybe things have changed. Facebook always changes it. But yeah, that's a very good point. We had another question come in from David. Any more advice for those who are just starting out? I'm in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign and I need to get the word out. Have you done a lot with Kickstarter campaigns?
We briefly talked about. So we briefly talked about that. I mentioned if you don't have an audience yet, you do have to start at the top. And again, it's a lot about research. So using Facebook's audience insights to get an idea of what your audience is interested in and how to target them. And then it's a constant process, in my opinion, in there of refinement. So what I would do is I would look for a large competitor. And when we say competitor, actually, I don't even mean like an exact competitor in this space. What I mean is who's competing for your audience's attention. So for instance, I'm looking at this Dazzle Wrap gift wrap. So the person who buys Dazzle Wrap gift wrap, what else do they buy that's similar, or what else are they interested in that is not necessarily like, I don't think that there's like a gift wrap competitor, but they're probably into arts and crafts. They probably follow like 5-minute crafts from BuzzFeed or, something like that, because they're into, this is probably the Pinterest woman that is, doing arts and crafts at home, this sort of stuff, DIY, etc. Exactly. So what you need to do is go into here. And Jean, are we running? Is this too long? Are we running over?
No, go ahead. I mean, people want to stay on. Usually it's about 45 minutes. So if people want to stay on, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm sharing my screen, and so I just want to put in interest in DIY magazine. Sounds good. Maybe there is 5-minute. No, it doesn't show up. So this, my favorite one, so you can get an idea of the demographics of people that follow. You could put in anything here, but
sorry, can I just really quickly say something? So if you want to get to just how to get to this is Facebook Audience Insights. So if you could just go to Google and put in Facebook Audience Insights, it will take you to this page. So just so that everybody's aware.
Yeah, sorry, I have a shortcut here. I have a shortcut here in my browser, so it goes super fast. And I'm looking over, I've got to move my camera because I'm looking at my other screen. So 68% are people, and that might not even be the best one. I just pulled it up like super fast. What other DIY? I don't know about DIY magazine. BuzzFeed DIY.
What about the first one, do it yourself?
So this was the BuzzFeed DIY. So that looks a little bit more like what I was expecting. 89% women. Here are the ages, such a huge bump here in the 25 to 34. So I might start with some of these stats. This will tell you their relationship status, education level, what kind of jobs that they are in. One of my favorites is getting their page likes information. So what other pages do they follow and like? If any of these show up as interests, you could target these interests. Crafty morning. Maybe I would put maybe crafts in here. But anyways, they're into budget 101. So they're into saving money. So budget-friendly type things. They like IKEA. This is all giving me ideas of ways that I can target them. I can also go through to these, I can also go through and see the types of content that they're consuming on these pages so that I'm creating the content that they're already consuming. I can see activity my mouse is being weird. I can see activity and location. So you start here. and you launch some ads. You need a budget for this. It just is how it goes. You launch some ads based on this information that you can find from audience insights, and then you refine it, right? Then you look at the results and you see, you go into your audience manager, you look at your ads and you see what age groups are performing the best, what locations are performing the best, which of the interests that you chose are performing the best. And you slowly start to get rid of things that aren't working. Maybe the iPhone people are performing the best, or maybe mobile is likely performing better than desktop. And so you start to really shave off from that big interest list and refine down to the people that are more interested. And from there, those people are seeing a post, so they're engaging with it, or they're liking your page, so they've liked it. Maybe you sent them to your website and you have the pixel on there. So now you've been running that ad, you've refined the audience based on big interest to small interest, and at the same time, you've generated the activity that you need to get the retargeting that you want. So it's a very simple process. You don't have the opportunity to start with data, then you have to create the data on your own. Yeah, you have to go for the wider, you don't just cast a super wide net, what you just said about women, age, whatever, sex, and you actually go to the audience insight. So it's not just a guess, it is a wide net, but it's an educated net because you've done the audience insights research. So when people say wide net, I feel like they just go in and they put an age and female and United States and one interest or something, and they just run with it. But you should narrow it down based on what you learned from audience insights. Yeah, David, 20 to 30 million is too much. So you need to narrow it. You need to narrow it down even more. Pick, just like Saving Dinner, I just said their name. Just like the meal planning service that I was talking about, you need to find a niche inside. So if they like the DIY network, maybe see if like one show, one particular host or something will get you the more narrow, right? So if you want more help with it, reach out. I'm happy to schedule a consulting call or something with you about that if you want to. But yeah, you got to make some educated guesses, get it down to 2 to 3 million for that first audience and go from there. But that's not flipping, then you flip the funnel, right? Then you flip it. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of people start because they're starting from nothing, but some people have assets already and they're just not using them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. I think we're out of time already. We're a couple minutes over. So thanks everybody for your questions. Kate, thank you very much for your time here. We always love having you on the show and the webinar and the roundtable. I mean, you've been all over my content, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's just amazing information that you're sharing with everybody because it's so important for us to learn how do we actually engage the most with our audiences, because that's such a key thing on social media. So thanks everybody for being here. This was recorded, so I will have this up probably on YouTube sometime in the next 24 hours. So thanks everybody for being here, and we will talk to you all next month.
Thanks for being here. Bye.